Welcome to the Daily Cannon Podcast. Hello and welcome to another Daily Cannon Weekly Podcast. The season's finished, so we're not talking about any actual games, but we thought we'd get together and have a little bit of chat about the season as a whole. Just keeping it brief because we'll go into a bit more detail in another podcast further down the line, hopefully when we've got some new signings to discuss. But until then, I thought I'd have a little chat with Paul, Helen, Anita and Sylvain and find out what they thought about the season just gone. Yeah, I suppose before we get on to individual bits and bobs, how would you sum up the way you feel about the season now there's been a sort of tiny bit of remove from it and the post-Spurs hilarity? How you'd kind of sum it up?
That's a good question. I think overall the feeling I have is pretty much the same as it was last week, which is I think overall it's been disappointing. But that being said, you have to acknowledge that, and I've been saying this to people all of last week, where you finish after 38 games and everyone's played each other twice is where you deserve to finish, and we might not be the most convincing second place team anyone's ever seen, but that's where we were. I'm reluctant to be too down on Arsenal at the moment. You know, there were some good bits of the season. I mean, it's like people say, oh, Spurs were the best. They were the best team this season. It's like, well, they drew loads of games at the start of the season and they didn't win any of their last four. And like it or not, those 4 games constitute a tenth of the season. So wouldn't it be great to be able to talk about Arsenal without having to talk about Spurs?
To be fair, the boot has been on the other foot for about 50 years. So, you know, we can have that once in a while.
I said last week, basically I was resigned to us finishing below Spurs, and that we didn't. I think it ended the season on a nice note, and I think maybe as a fan base we needed the season to end like that. You know, throughout it's been an unpleasant season, I think, for all sorts of reasons. I think obviously what's been going on in the stands as much as on the pitch has been pretty distasteful, really. You know, I get being upset about how the team performed in January to March, and, you know, I was as upset as anyone, but I don't think there's any excuse for some of the behaviour and the language that's been quite well documented.
Yeah, there has been quite large parts this season where it hasn't felt like much fun.
We've alluded to it pretty much every week on the podcast. Everyone was looking forward to just being done with this season and moving on. Again, we're in a situation now with Granit that we've done a little bit of early business, and it's a good start to the summer. But I guess the hope is that it's not like 2 seasons ago when we signed Alexis and then didn't do anything else till quite late on in the window.
What about you, Helen?
Well, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because second on the face of it is better than we've managed in, 10 years?
Indeed.
So numerically, as the statistics go, that's not bad. But if you look at the points total element of it, then it doesn't really show much progress at all. And equally, if you look at it on the face of opportunity, then we've missed one. I have to say, I think the slightly strange thing for me this season was finishing our season on the last league game. Having had a couple of seasons now where we've had a little outing in May, it felt weird to go into the final league game knowing that this was it, this was the end, and there wasn't anything sort of further to look forward to, which I suppose is a bit of an indictment of the expectation we start to have as soon as we get any measure of success. And probably goes part way to explaining why this season, despite not being a total failure, on objective terms at any rate, feels like not the best.
I was thinking about what I will say in this podcast about the season in general, and before the last weekend I thought it was a bad season for us because we should have done much better, especially when we look at the other teams that are in our ranks. Obviously Leicester had a one-off season, I think so. So I think we should have done better, much better. But when that final weekend happened and Spurs did their thing, it all ended up pretty much okay. I mean, we end up second. That's the best ranking we had since we moved to Emirates, right?
True.
It doesn't look so bad. But there's that thing that you think it should have been better. We have the team, we had good performances, but then something happened from January, February, March, and it just, I don't know. If I should give a grade for this season, I think it would be a C, perhaps. C plus, B minus, something like that.
Yeah, I can't disagree with any of that. What about you, Sylvain? What's your thoughts about the season as a whole?
Slightly disappointing, to be honest. As you mentioned, second place is really, really good, actually, compared to previous season. So it's definitely an improvement. But what I saw is really the team didn't maximize their potential at all. So in that respect, it's pretty disappointing. I mean, like 7 defeats. That's not really a title contender season, to be honest. So that was really the disappointing side of the game. It's the team didn't really perform as good as they should have done. But second place, when you think about it, it's not bad at all.
Particularly, as you say, as Anita said, those 3 months at the start of 2016 really cost us. And as well as those 7 defeats, it was also drawing games which really you'd expect a team challenging for major honours to win, which was problematic. And obviously a lot of that came down to the fact we didn't score enough goals, which was an unusual disappointment for Arsenal, because normally the problem is we let in too many goals. Whereas this season the defence wasn't so bad, but we just stopped scoring. It was a season where there were high points, but the overall was a bit of a disappointment. But let's start with some of the high points. I mean, what for each of you would you say is your best performance by the team this season?
It kind of has to be the Man United game at home, I think. I think the Manchester City game just before Christmas was a really good performance because we bossed that game totally until Yaya Toure decided he was going to try and actually play some football in the last 10 minutes. I think the Olympiacos game at their place, the pressure the team was under in that match, to put in a performance like that was really, really, I don't want to say a special performance because it was Olympiacos, but for Arsenal to go to that stadium and like Olympiacos' home record, whether they're Olympiacos or not, they had a really good home record. It was a tough stadium to go to at, and we all knew that before the game. And then we, aside from the first 10-15 minutes, we were magnificent, I thought, that night. Joel Campbell and Olivier Giroud particularly.
Yeah, and we've all seen various iterations of Arsenal teams lose at that stadium in the past. So.
Yeah, but that Manchester United game, the sheer hilarity of the first 20 minutes is hard to top, really. And also, Helen mentioned it, I think maybe last week, the maturity with which we saw out the second half, where it was just no alarms, no surprises. So there were 2 sides to that performance, and both sides added up to a really impressive whole. If only we could have sustained that kind of type of performance, or even reproduced it. The season may have ended on a slightly more celebratory note.
Yeah, I suspect there's going to be a lot of votes for Man U at home. My little spanner into the work for that one is just something to think about, is beating Bayern. Although it wasn't nearly as comprehensive a victory, Bayern are a lot better than Manchester United.
Yeah. I always remember what I liked about that game was how Owen Hargreaves spent the first hour of that game absolutely berating Arsenal for the tactical approach, which wasn't to go and press them high up the pitch and try and force mistakes, because we didn't want Bayern to play through us. We kind of sat back and defended in a very organised fashion, and then it was a classic Arsenal in Europe performance, but one from the George Graham textbook.
Yeah.
So I did enjoy that performance. I guess my memories of that night are slightly soured because of what happened with me and my friend Chris after Mesut Ozil's goal, which was the worst finish Chris had ever seen. We've got past that now, at last.
What about you, Helen? What are your thoughts? Because obviously you have the pleasure of actually going to a lot of the games in a way that many of us, the diaspora, don't have the same opportunity.
Well, I suppose I should caveat that by saying, whilst I have the opportunity to go regularly and exclusively, I also have the memory of a sieve. If I think back to games that I've genuinely enjoyed at the Emirates, they are very few and far between. I mean, obviously the 3-0 against United was a highlight. The home leg against Bayern, simply because of the sort of magnitude of the challenge that faced us.
Yeah.
And of course the Leicester game as well, albeit I missed the successful part of the Leicester game nonetheless.
Yes, of course, yes.
But sat through the torrid first half and watched Jamie Vardy dive for a penalty, as has become his wont. So yeah. It's really hard to pin it down to one. It's certainly I'd struggle to pick out any highlights since Christmas, bar that Leicester game, I think.
Pretty much on the same page with that.
I tend not to remember all performances too well, unless when I go and look back on each and every one. But I don't know, I always keep getting back to Manchester City at home and how we won that match and we looked good and we had a purpose to win, you know? I don't know how to explain, but as we remember, we didn't have much possession, we didn't get the ball much, but we scored and we won that match, and it all looked like we can do it against big teams. And also the other match against Manchester United, that was also those 20 minutes actually when 3-0, that was also one of the highest points. Yeah.
What about you, Sylvain? Anything you'd like to add or disagree about?
Yeah, I agree with the United one, definitely, because we just blitzkrieg them and just that was really good. And the second one for me is actually that home defeat against Barcelona. I thought the team played really well. Obviously, we lost 2-0, but because we made the usual mistake on the counter-attack. But the team really raised the level on the night, and obviously I was there, that's why I remember it more. And they look really better than usual on that day.
I think our best performance was against Bayern Munich because we came into a game with a game plan, executed it very successfully, and Bayern Munich, apart from Barcelona, are the best team we've played this season, as they showed when we visited their place. Obviously, for every yin there is a yang, and what about the worst performance of the season, or the one that you found hardest to take? I mean, obviously we've got a bit more selection in this particular category.
Swansea was the worst. I'm very optimistic as an Arsenal fan, but I came away from that game noticeably angry. And I sometimes get disappointed and I might be a little bit bored, but I'm very rarely angry. And on that day, I really felt like, yeah, you can pinpoint some of it on the ref, and I was angry at that element of it as well. But I just felt that it was just such a flat performance where we didn't really do anything.
I have to admit that was in joint first place for me as in shitstorm of the season. Yeah.
To be fair, I think the first game of the season was pretty awful as a sort of anticlimax. After having that great moment at the start of the season where we're like, yeah, we've signed a player from a rival, Petr Cech's going to be the difference for us. And then his very first game to be quite such a... Well, you used the word shitstorm, and that would probably apply. Is it equally in this circumstance?
I think, you could throw Sheffield Wednesday in there, but then that's the Carling Cup, and I can't get upset about the Carling Cup, as upsetting as it was to see us get hammered by a championship side.
Who were in the playoff final, surprisingly.
Final, yeah. I guess the Man United game kind of again stands out because it's one of those it's a signal game, isn't it? We'd gone there and won that game. We were still so in the title race. So we beat Leicester to go 2 points behind them, and then we go to injury-ravaged Man United, and that performance was such a nothing. And I was tweeting for Daily Cannon that day, and just watching Arsenal in the last 20 minutes of that game just sleepwalking You know, I always that was the phrase, I sleepwalking to defeat, and it just seemed to sum up everything that people have found so upsetting about Arsenal this year. That we were sliding to this defeat that seemed so needless, but no one seemed to know what to do to rescue us. We have always had players, and we do still have players that can stand up and drag a game out of the fire, but there wasn't any evidence of that at Old Trafford, and it was embarrassing. You know, I think as much as we've got a really terrible record at Man United, and you know, I've said it before, I was there for the 8-2 game, but just the level of embarrassment and shame and the feeling of sitting and watching a game that you desperately wanted to turn off, but you couldn't, because there was still a chance that we could rescue a point or something out of it.
An indictment of our ability to defend. And likewise, the Bayern game was just a bit depressing.
I find it hard to look past that, although the Southampton game on Boxing Day was...
Yeah.
I do think there were a series of circumstances. People will say, oh, you're just making excuses for them, but the first goal is a worldie, and then the second goal shouldn't have. There was a foul.
I think it was a thing where technically, if the ref, I mean, one of them was a bit after the incident, but I think technically 3 of Southampton's goals shouldn't have stood. I think that was what they worked out.
Yeah, so the second goal was Shane Long is unmarked in the 6-yard box to score a tap-in because he's taken out Laurent Koscielny off the ball.
Yeah.
The third goal came from a corner that shouldn't have been given. And I will be honest and say that by the time the fourth goal had gone in, I was doing something else because it was Boxing Day and Joe's dad was round.
What about you, Sylvain? Any particularly stand out for you?
Yeah, Chelsea away. I think it was the usual, stupidity. You know you're gonna get trapped. Costa is a bastard. And what did you get?
Chelsea at home might have been even worse.
Yeah. But you know what you're gonna get with Costa, and we still get the red card. And they were there for the taking as well. We know they had a rubbish season. So you think you're gonna do something, get a result, and yeah, that was one of the worst for me.
My first pick would be sentimental one against Dinamo Zagreb in Champions League. I still can't believe how we lost that one, and I won't forget it anytime soon.
Well, yes, it's slightly harder for you to forget given where you are.
Yeah, but the others, I don't know. I can't get over the match in FA Cup with Watford, right? I think we should have won that and go to the final again, because it didn't seem like hard after that match, but I'm not sure how we lost that one. Why did we let it go?
Yeah, I think for me personally, that's the one I found most disappointing, simply because when the team started to perform, they went all guns blazing in the last 10 minutes, scored once, hit the post, nearly scored a couple other times. So it was the why didn't you guys do this before? Why did you have to wait for them to go 2 goals?
We had that same thought more than once this season.
This is true, yes. Nailed on to beat Palace in the semi, and that Man United team in the final I reckon we could have had as well. And it could have been a historic 3 FA Cups in a row if we'd just remotely turned up.
Well, yeah, that was another game we kind of sleptwalked through it, didn't we? And it was only...
Sort of woke up with 10 minutes to go.
A game that showcased the best and worst of Danny Welbeck in the space of 3 minutes, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The brilliant goal that he scored, and then I think he was a little unlucky with the shot wide, but it's still an open goal.
Yeah. What I think so frustrating about that one was the fact that we basically didn't turn up, and then for the 10 minutes we did actually try, we showed enough that we should have spanked them. Just showed that if they'd just been on that mental space earlier in the match, they could have won easily. But anyway.
Oh, see, I do the Watford one. This is where I draw the distinction. You see, the Swansea one, I felt we shot ourselves in the foot. The refereeing went against us, and we were just abject. We didn't have a go. We didn't really do anything. They looked more likely to get another than we did to get an equaliser. Whereas the Watford game in the FA Cup, I came away from that feeling like we'd been desperately unlucky. You know. Yes, there was a bit of stupid defending that allowed them to score their goal. You know, I said right at the start of the game to my dad, Igalo always gambles. He'll try and do something you don't expect because you won't expect it. Like gamble that you're going to put a challenge in and go across it. So we fell for that hook, line and sinker. But at least when we went behind, we did have a bloody good go at getting that game back. And, you know, on another day, some of those shots go in. It was disappointing to go out at that stage of the Cup, especially given our sort of record and our run in it in recent years. But for me, it wasn't devastating.
Well, it was also just that, you know, when you get to that stage in a cup competition and a lot of the big teams have gone out and you're at home, if you can't rouse yourself for more than 45 minutes, win that sort of opportunity to even kind of play with endeavour. I mean, at Swansea, the game for me, it seemed that whatever they tried to do was just counterproductive, and it was one of those ones where it seemed almost the entire team played badly. That I found probably more depressing, but not as frustrating. When they got their second goal, it seemed like none of the players believed they could equalise, which was, for me, that game felt to me like the lowest point of the season. I don't know what you guys thought about that.
Yeah, could be. Yeah, you're onto something.
Why? Thank you.
That Boxing Day against Southampton, that wasn't fun at all.
No, I was lucky.
It's just random moments like that. I mean, too many of them.
So we got lucky, honestly, on like everything went wrong. Something can happen, and then again, and you're like, seriously? Everything that could go wrong went wrong. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? If it happens once or twice, you think, it's just bad luck. But when it starts to happen a bit more often, you're like, luck or something else.
Somebody's to blame.
I tell you what, actually, game I've just remembered enjoying immensely, and it's probably one of the less common ones you'll see. Stoke at home, first half of the season. I thought, and Paul would say I've chosen this because Theo Walcott scored, which is only partly true. But it was a cracking goal. It was one of the few games this season where we've played at pace, and you know, if you look at Theo's goal, it's a ball from deep that he's chased onto, slotted away, and Stoke didn't know what hit them. And I just thought it was a very professional performance where we were pretty clinical in taking our chances. We took them apart based on their weaknesses, and then defended properly for once. So I did enjoy that as a performance as well.
What about your goal of the season? I mean, obviously there's a number of different candidates, but actually, we're looking back, we probably had less worldies this year than we have most years. I mean, last season was no better as a season as a whole, but there were more stonking goals.
I saw today that the voters on Arsenal.com picked the El Neni's shot against Barcelona. So I went to that article and looked at their video they made from, I think it was like 9 or 10 goals from this season, and really did score some amazing goals. And we did have a poll on Twitter on Daily Cannon to vote for goal of the season, and I might be one of the few ones who voted for Giroud's goal against Bayern. I think that was really... I love that kind of goals, and it was in a good match. It was, I think it was our only goal in München.
Yeah.
Right, it was 4, and it was like kind of volley or scissor kick even, something like that. So I like that. And obviously, Flamini's goal against Spurs, that was something else.
I noticed this year they didn't let us anywhere near the match of the day goal of the season poll, though. After Arsenal fans fixed that 2 years in a row.
I think Alexis' first goal against West Brom Didn't at home, obviously. Well, we only scored more than once at home, didn't we?
Yeah.
So that goal hasn't got nearly enough love for me because the turn and then the shot were just, I think I said this when I actually wrote something for Daily Cannon last week. It was the kind of goal that gets treated as just something Alexis has done.
Yeah. Well, I suppose it doesn't help that it isn't a game that quite a lot of the watching public didn't really want to watch.
Yeah, fair enough. Just it was still a brilliant goal.
Yeah.
Again, Alexis, I think at home to Manchester. Well, both of his goals at home to Manchester United were fantastic. I guess probably the one people will pick out is the second one, which was a carbon copy of a goal he scored against Liverpool last season.
Yeah.
Well, Danny Welbeck's goal against Watford I thought was really good. I wouldn't say it was a goal of the season contender, but it was a very nice goal. Theo Walcott's goal against Manchester City was a very good one.
Yeah.
In the interest of balance, seeing as every time I talk about Theo, I seem to be being wrong about him. I will say he got in the way of a pass that was clearly intended for Nacho Monreal there.
But we'll let him off.
Yeah, Danny, I barely had the words
It's a bit like Sevilla's second goal in the Europa League final against Liverpool, where this one guy's playing about 3-1-2s and the final reverse pass, someone else just steams in and goes, actually, I'll stick that in the corner.
Yeah.
What about you?
So my goal of the season, based on the moment itself, is undoubtedly 100% Danny Welbeck's goal against Leicester. For sheer exhilaration. Although I have to say that Wijnaldum's second goal on the final day of the season would be a close second.
For my Schadenfreude goal, it has to be Eden Hazard, because it was a truly brilliant goal and it led to a spectacular meltdown, which I think we can enjoy for the entirety of the summer, really.
I may or may not have punched the air and gone, come on!
Yeah, it felt weird.
Leicester, and I had to go out for a walk after that.
For me, it was Danny Welbeck against Leicester, actually, because it was an important goal.
Yes, it was. And the storyline as well, him coming back.
So I think it was great and important value. And
Back when it still looked possible.
at that time, I really thought the title was coming, honestly.
Yeah, true. Everyone did.
Yeah, and yeah.
How happy were the players?
Oh well, seeing as we seem to have turned our conversation about best goal into another moment of disappointment, let's see if we can find some happiness by thinking about who are. Well, I know the Daily Cannon polls already happened on this, but each of your 1, 2, 3 for your best player of the season, in order.
One is absolutely, I don't even have to think about one. I think Mesut Ozil can count himself very unlucky. He didn't break the assist record, and we all know it's not through his performances that happened.
Indeed.
Absolutely smashed the chances created stats for the season.
Yeah, broke the record, yeah.
Exactly. So if you stick someone who can actually find the goal with some sort of regularity on the end of his chances, then he'd have wiped the floor with Thierry's record. But there you go. So he's number one in my book. I think people say he only scored 8 goals this year. Well, 8 goals from Mesut Ozil is quite a return, actually.
Indeed, yes. Yeah.
So, and at the end of the day, if people put away the chances he created for them, we wouldn't need to talk about the fact that he doesn't score 20 goals a season. He's not that kind of midfielder.
Clearly, our player of the season. I think everyone with a brain would agree with that.
Well, what about your number 2 then?
Number 2, I kind of think Petr Cech. I know there's been a couple of mistakes that he's made. You know, we expect a little bit better of Petr Cech than to get beaten on his near post, particularly with the frequency with which it's happened. But he saved us a lot of points in the first part of the season. Think of that Liverpool game at home in particular.
Yeah, that was outstanding performance.
So I would say Petr Cech. And then third, I don't know, it's a bit of a muchness for me. I'd be really tempted to say Danny Welbeck, because I think he came back and, you know, within 5 minutes of, well, it was 10 minutes of making his comeback after 7 months out, he heads a really dramatic winner. He looks that absolute business. He came, he saw, he conquered, he got injured again, as I wanted to write last week, and I wasn't sure how callous that would come across, so I left it out. I'm going to go with that actually, because I am genuinely left with the feeling that had Danny Welbeck been available for more than 2 months of this season, we would have had a few more points on the board than we actually ended up with.
I think most would agree with that sentiment at least. And what about...
I would probably go with Hector Bellerin for number 2. I think he's had another great season. It helps that he has a nice catchy song that I like to sing and dance around my house. I think the thing that's really pleasing for me with Bellerin is he keeps improving. I said at the start of the year, I think his biggest weakness is in the air, and a little blip against Andy Carroll aside, which you can forgive someone with his experience, I think, at this stage in his career, I thought he was significantly better in the air the later on the season got. He wasn't getting caught under the ball so much, and he was winning many more headers. So that for me was pleasing. It's a bit of a struggle after that, to be fair. Probably Koscielny.
Fair enough.
I think he's had another consistent season. Not spectacular, but there's definitely based on the length of injuries most players have had, there's a dearth of worthy alternatives in a way.
Obviously, Mesut first, and then far away, I think I put Cech and Monreal.
Okay, and why Cech second and Monreal third?
Cech was really a great signing for us, and something we lacked in last few seasons, like a good goalkeeper. And obviously he did win the Golden Glove with 16 clean sheets and all that, and he did bring even more than just saves and clean sheets. He was like leading the team, bossing the defense, and just being general, important figure in the whole team. And I think that one of the best signings probably this season in Premier League.
Fair enough.
And Monreal, he has been very, very good in last few seasons, as you all know. And just I really like him and feel very calm when he's in defense, and he does good when he's up front as well. But yeah, that's why I picked him as my third. I like defense. Last season my favorite was Koscielny. Now those two are.
I know a lot of people probably think Monreal. For me, Monreal had a good season by his own standards. But if you ask me, would I rather keep Monreal or Gibbs? Slightly unpopular, I'm sure, but I would keep Gibbs. I think Monreal's got some fundamental flaws in his game that he gets away with at the moment.
Yeah, they've both got weaknesses. I mean, it's interesting reading interviews with Monreal, who, I would probably have him at my number 3 simply because I think his consistency, even if it isn't necessarily at the same level, was very important. But he freely admits himself that he's better against tricky players than outright pace. And he was talking about when he was playing in Spain, he actually found he had a better time against Lionel Messi than Jesus Navas, which must make him one of the only fullbacks in the world that has that particular relationship.
Well, you saw it again, though, didn't you, against City?
Yeah.
Jesus Navas looked like a world beater in that game. And for me, if someone kicks the ball at Monreal, he turns the wrong way inside his player. So he loses sight of the ball, and therefore he loses where the player is. And that can get him into some real difficulties. He gets away with it a lot because his instinct for interceptions is so good. But I just feel like at the top level he's missing something. I think the thing with both our left backs is when they play regularly, they're very consistent, and when they're not playing regularly, they're useless, or not useless, but a bit pants. So that means that whoever's in possession of the shirt will always look a lot better than the person who's not. Because this season, when Monreal sat out a game or two, because Gibbs is coming in completely ring rusty, he looked useless. And yet the same was probably true last season when Gibbs largely held the shirt. Every time Monreal was put in for a game or two, he looked like a liability. So,
I always thought that criticism of either was overstated. that, as you say, they both have different flaws which are relatively fundamental. And so how good they look is partly dependent on opposition. What about you, Sylvain?
I think I had Ozil in first, and probably Czech in second, and he will be in third place actually.
You like to see the young players break through.
Yeah, that's it for the breakthrough this year. So I think he just came through. I like players who come through the ranks. The club produce them, and I've done for a long time as a youth player, and I think he's great. That's how it should work, and implement the club with like top class player like or Czech in an ideal world. But we know it can't really happen.
So is this the Arsenal going down the Zidane's and Pavon's route?
Yeah, more or less. I think in France, when you support Nantes, it's exactly the same. All the players through the youth team, and the team won the league a year, I think, like in 1994, with like 85% of the players coming from the youth team in Nantes. So.
Oh yeah, I remember that team. Yeah.
If you can do stuff like that, I think it's great. Same with the ladies, actually. If you can get all the ladies from the youth team, which are really good, that would be pleasing, actually.
As opposed to what's happened with our ladies' team, where we got the whole team from the youth team, and then they all left to go and play for Chelsea.
Another bad story.
Well, we'll get on to that in a minute. Okay, and as I say, everything has balance, so it's very easy to pick a worst player for the season, but I want a worst three. The three that you felt most disappointed with. Again, in order. This is a bit harder, but...
Not really.
In that case, you can start us off, Sylvain.
Number one, Walcott, obviously. Didn't do well enough. Number two, Chamberlain, for me, the same. The same laziness in defending again. And number three, I don't know, actually. I think those two are big winners for me.
We need a third for you, Sylvain. You can't get off that easy.
Finger!
Yeah.
No, but seriously, Theo Walcott, his performance level was not acceptable. And obviously, after he lost his place, he didn't manage to get it back because the other players were better than him. So he made too many defensive mistakes, didn't track enough, and 25 million, somebody can buy him, please.
You can get your weekly mention in.
I've already mentioned him. Okay, yeah, obviously Theo, a crushing disappointment. So I gave him a grade of D when I did my striker roundup last week. And
are you feeling that was generous now?
You know what? Actually, I was awake in bed on Friday night thinking, could I have given him an E? I feel like I could have done. I mean, I saw Lewis gave someone an F. Is that Matthew Flamini? F for Flamini.
Although some of Lewis's were pretty harsh across the board, to be fair.
Yeah, but I mean, again, Theo showed this season that he's capable of coming up with moments of brilliance. Well, we knew that. But then you get the flip side of him, which is him jumping out of the way of tackles that haven't actually been made. And I don't know. I used to have regular conversations with Kevin Witcher, the editor of The Gooner, and he has always insisted that Theo Walcott is just someone that can run very fast. And yeah, I used to defend him a lot, actually, Theo, and I just don't feel like I've run out of the will to defend him, because I just feel that, as I said last week, we've had 10 years of this guy at the football club, and really there's very little to show for it. If you think 10 years, if we'd had Thierry Henry for 10 years, how many goals would he have scored?
Well,
so yeah, obviously Theo, I think the Ox has been. I kind of think the Ox has been body snatched. I don't understand what's happened to him. I know, again, it's the injuries, but I think back to a guy that when we signed him, he looked so exciting, powerful, pacey, skillful, good head on his shoulders, and he feels like someone that really 5 years have we had him now?
Something like
it's
that, yeah.
5 years, isn't it? Because the 8-2 was in 2011. You'd have expected a little bit more from someone after 5 years, even allowing for those injuries. And it's interesting. I think Nia made a comment about him along the lines of he's gone from being one of her favourite players to someone that she just does not want to see in an Arsenal shirt. The thing with him is that he's young enough that you hope that he can...
Yeah, it's not giving up on him time yet.
Yeah, I think it'd be a bit of madness from Arsenal to sell him. I mean, obviously there's talk that other clubs are interested in him, but 22 years old, I wouldn't pull the plug on him. Not yet. Give him another season and he still hasn't sorted himself out, then I think there's a different argument to be made, maybe. But yeah, the thing is with the Ox that I find frustrating is that I think I've said this before as well. I look at him and I see someone that wants to do well, and I think he tries too hard sometimes.
Yeah, totally. He's very famously hard on himself as well.
Yeah, and I think if he could just simplify his game a little bit, and rather than trying to behave like Pele every time he gets the ball. Arsene Wenger talked about Aaron Ramsey having similar troubles a few years ago, didn't he? I think, I'd just simplify it. All right.
And what about your third for crapping out the season?
14 Premier League games without a goal. Olivier Giroud is worth a mention. I kind of feel like Per Mertesacker probably merits a mention, but I still think him and Koscielny, when everyone's fit, is our best pairing.
Yeah, probably.
So from that point of view, I can't really go with Mertesacker. I just think he's paid the price for
being slow.
It isn't just one thing, is it? But the Chelsea game didn't help his.
Well, it was the Chelsea game and then the Barca game, wasn't it? Where both times getting caught too high up.
Yeah, I mean, you could also say Flamini, but
depends what your expectations were, I guess.
I just think at the end of the day, when we were all talking at the start of this season about our central midfielders, not one of us thought Matthew Flamini was still going to be a decent option for Arsenal this season. So, to me, all right, yeah, he's part of the first team squad, so he's fair game. But he hasn't really done any worse than any of us expected. And, of course, he was the hero at White Hart Lane. But that was the Carling Cup, so we can't get too excited.
What about you, Anita?
Cool. Yeah, I agree about Walcott and Oxlade-Chamberlain. They should have done much, much better. At least we know how good they can be, and they just didn't use their chances, and of course lost their places or sadly got injured like Ox. But third one, besides Wenger, I can't think of real third player that was bad. I'm really bad at judging players on the back. I don't usually give bad grades and all that. I hate goalkeepers and I gave them B+ and C.
I think Helen didn't agree with Ospina.
Well, I tell you who would definitely feature on my top 3 list would be dear departing, hopefully, Ospina. For that Olympiacos game alone, he would make my top 3, if not my top 1. So I don't think he's good enough to play for Arsenal.
Yeah.
I think as a number 2, I can stomach him because not many people have an international top quality goalkeeper at their number 2. But for me, he's just not consistent enough. He's too prone to making an error. And for a goalkeeper, it's not about how often you pull off wonder saves, it's how often you don't concede those howlers. And that is where, for me, he lets himself down. Which is why David James was never a top keeper.
Which is why he's our reserve goalkeeper and that's his place in the squad.
For me, I'll be looking forward to seeing Szczesny return, hopefully.
So who would you look at beyond Ospina for a player that you feel has let you down? Let the club down and let themselves down.
No, for me, I won't name Theo. He's had a terrible second half of the season, but his first half of the season was all right.
Well, I mean, my take on it is there are still others who may not immediately spring to mind who are more deserving of our criticism, even if in a couple of cases we may feel reluctant to do so.
Yeah, I think for me, Flamney's been a bit of a non-entity all season. I don't think he does what we need him to do. I don't think he's good enough at what he does. And actually, I almost think he's detrimental to the team because he gives the impression of doing something which he's not actually doing. So you're sort of relying on him to do it, and then it doesn't materialise. And because you're relying on it, you've not done something yourself. I think for me, 2 of our 3 centre-backs haven't performed. I wouldn't say Mertesacker has let himself down. I don't think it's a case of that, but I do think it's a case of he's getting over the hill. And his form's dropping off, and we need to be looking at alternatives. And for me, Gabriel shouldn't be playing with Koscielny. He should be playing instead of Koscielny if Koscielny's not available.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that.
It's difficult to judge him too harshly in that context because we've seen for years, you play someone alongside John Terry and they look like a great player. You play them alongside the likes of John Stones, marginally less so. Gary Cahill.
Yeah. We remember our Gallas Toure conundrum or Vermaelen alongside anyone who is still at the squad. They're just certain partnerships don't work. I definitely want to give honourable mentions to, and I've probably done this before, but the already dearly departed, or at least still attempting to depart, Matthew Debussy, who played 5 or 6 games and was awful in every one of them, and then bitched to the press and then left, and then proceeded to be injured for half the time he was at Bordeaux.
Yeah, it's true. His performance were not good at all. He was lacking rhythm, to be honest. So
I think that kind of behaviour from him is possibly why Barry Glendenning likes to refer to the French as cheese-eating surrender monkeys. Now, I'm not condoning or endorsing slightly, let's call it national stereotype. But
sounds better than racism, yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, really gutless behaviour, I think, from Debussy. But again, I think maybe he's just sort of writing on the wall. I think we talked about this at the time. He was going, you look at Hector Bellerin and think, really the only way Debussy would be getting his place back is if Bellerin broke a limb. Which, being as he's an Arsenal player is entirely possible, but it's not really something to plan the next couple of years of your career on, is it?
But I suppose I'm cheating slightly because, let's face it, no one really thinks of him as an Arsenal player anymore.
he can still come back. Oops.
Yeah.
Really looking forward to it, both him and us.
Yes, but it'd be interesting to see if Jenkinson ends up being in the squad next season, if he gets his fitness back or not. But I mean, that's a moot point at the moment. And for similar reasons, but it's reassuring that so many of those that we're disappointed with probably won't be here next year, because Arteta, much as I dislike to criticise the guy, if it's got to the level where he recognises he's not good enough.
He didn't play?
He didn't play, and the one game he played, game he played more than 20 minutes, he managed to score an own goal, help set up another opposition goal, and then get injured. Which for a club captain and someone taking up a squad spaces, for me, just wasn't acceptable. Basically, my criticism on Arteta is not necessarily anything to do with attitude or technical capacity, but more just the fact that, as we all feared it was the case, his legs went, and they really went. And he's retiring as a result, and so the criticism is more at the manager for thinking that there was a player that could still be relied upon when most outside observers were thinking, really, he's barely been fit for a couple of years now.
Arsene is the managerial version of me. He's definitely an optimist.
That's definitely true.
And obviously, Arsene's taken the view, well, we've got a decent sized squad, we can afford to gamble on someone, and in isolation, maybe so. And so it's quite clear to me he contributed more than just football to our dressing room, He arrived at a very important time for our club, and he's clearly a very influential man around the setup. But the trouble is, he's not in isolation. There are 2 or 3 players, at least in our squad, who have barely played a minute between them. And that becomes a drain on the players who are available, because they end up having to play every single minute of every single game.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? Even ignoring the the likes of Wilshere and Welbeck, who we knew had serious injuries. It's, you know, if you have a squad where you have Flamini, Arteta and Rosicky all taking up a squad space, and 2 of whom definitely can't stay fit, and the third one is fit-ish.
Isn't good enough.
I mean,
for me, that's the bigger crime actually is Flamini, because I don't think Flamini was good enough, even at the start of the season, and I think we all knew that.
I think a lot of people, myself included, said exactly the same about Arteta. You know, we appreciated what he brought in a pastoral role, and appreciated what he had been as a footballer. But for me, even the back end of last season, it was just so clear that even when he was fit, his legs had just gone.
But I think we talked a lot at the start of the season about how he could be your perfect substitute with 70 minutes gone.
Yeah, 15 minutes of Arteta.
You might have disagreed, but I know Paul and I definitely.
I thought
the problem was because he wasn't able to play those last 15-20 minutes. You then saw the likes of Cazorla, Coquelin, Ramsey playing 90 minutes week in, week out.
Yeah.
Until each of them picked up their various injuries.
Indeed. Are there anything else you think we should be covering?
I guess there's probably there's got to be a banter moment of the season, hasn't there?
I don't really know what that means.
I guess what I was thinking of was how. Well, there's a couple of things. So before the season even started, Arsenal decide that the squad that finished third in the Premier League last season and some way away from the league champions don't actually need any outfield reinforcements. That was quite bantery, you say. And then, the fact that the one player we do sign, the player that is supposed to come in and give us the defensive reinforcement necessary to actually mount a title bid, the signing of Petr Cech, despite the lack of outfield signings, everyone felt optimistic about that. And then he comes
for about an hour.
Comes to get across, misses it, and we end up losing our opening game of the season at home to West Ham.
Yeah. With the second one being the patented near post not getting down quick enough as well.
Yeah, well, Chekhov's near post, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, hashtag banter.
Yeah, I may have to keep that option in simply because it can continue to prove my great theory that banter basically means being a prick.
Yeah, you're probably right. Also, I can't let this pass. Gabriel and Diego Costa.
Yeah.
I guess ultimately history kind of was on Helen's side there because, in the aftermath of that game we had quite a long discussion about Chelsea provoking and Arsenal's lack of emotional intelligence, as I called it. And then the FA decided that Mike Dean got things totally wrong. But wasn't it typical that he did,
Never seen that before.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what? My favourite moment of the whole season, and again, I'm really good at choosing unpopular moments, I reckon, but my favourite moment of the season, bearing in mind I am a complete Arsene Wenger aficionado, was in the middle of the protest when the entirety of the North Bank was standing up chanting "One Arsene Wenger." Not even because I wanted them to agree with me, not even because I wanted them to decide that that it should be the end of Arsene's time at the club, but it was the sheer sort of two fingers up to all those people who are courting division and the media, bought into the media hypocrisy around our club. I just thought it was a beautiful, beautiful moment of banter.
Yes, bantering out the disgruntled fan base, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Maybe it's not banter, that particular one, but it was a certain schadenfreude in it, that one. No, I've got it.
Oh.
My favourite moment of the season, not even Arsenal related, Jamie Vardy getting sent off, second yellow for a dive. Because for me, again, total irony in that, given that it was exactly what he bought a penalty for at the Emirates. Justice, karma, whatever you want to call it.
If you can't have success yourself, then a bit of schadenfreude, particularly if it feels related to a sense of injustice, is a very, very potent and enjoyable thing. For me, although it doesn't really technically count as whatever the bullshit definition of banter is, it does have to be Eden Hazard against Spurs.
Oh yeah, Spurs failure.
I might agree with Paul. For Wenger not signing any strikers, and then announcing that Welbeck is out for months, a few days after the transfer window closed.
Any thoughts from you, Sylvain?
Only Spurs on final day, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I love the quote that someone had on their Twitter. I think I put it in my column last week. It's what was it? Tell a man a joke and he'll laugh for a minute. Give a man Tottenham Hotspur and he'll laugh for a lifetime. I just thought this I can get down with. Is there anything else from the season that you'd like to suggest as maybe a category that you want to nominate something for?
Wenger for the dinosaur of the year.
Okay.
Now, I am seriously annoyed. He looks like he's living in the old time in terms of tactical stuff, and I don't think he has evolved very much from like 10 years ago. The team still seems to be playing the same way and doesn't adapt very much to the opposition strengths, especially when they play on the break. And we're like poor in transition, attacking and defensive transition, and like something very fundamental when you speak to coaches, you speak a lot with them in the women's football world. So about the evolution and stuff. And
yeah, you never hear him talking about tactics in the way that, say, Johan Cruyff. I mean, I read a little interesting thing that was an interview with Cruyff not long before he died, talking about how playing a classic number 10 in a 4-3-3 is stupid. Basically, because it doesn't actually maximise the space going forward, and it leaves your double pivot defensive midfielders overexposed. So I thought,
interesting.
Yeah, I mean, when was the last time you heard Arsene actually talk about tactics?
Thinking not in England actually, probably on French TV.
Oh, that's true. Yes, probably
when he's doing the punditry on TF1 or he was probably more open actually on French TV, to be honest.
Does he give the impression of thinking about these things more when he speaks in French?
No, but he would make comment on Arsenal or for example, he said when it was a long time ago, when you're comparing Theo Walcott and Aaron Lennon, we took Walcott because he's intelligent. More or less implying Lennon is not very intelligent and not very good at crossing the ball. Stuff like that, he wouldn't say it in England.
No, it's true. Although it'd be hard to argue with him. We're talking about Walcott as being like one of our biggest disappointments of the season, and he's still actually had a bigger impact on the season than Aaron Lennon.
Where is he anyway?
He's at Everton now.
Oh, right. Yeah.
He was competing with Deulofeu for the right hand side, and they were kind of swapping over a lot. But
yeah, so Arsene, I think he's found his limits on the tactical side, and that's not very good. That's why probably we lost a few games actually.
No, I feel like there's some sort of Theo Walcott category that ought to be introduced at this stage. Well, it can't even be fastest player at the club anymore, can it? Because you've got young Hector Bellerin. Unfortunately,
despite some good performances piped in there, this year it would be the Theo Walcott Award for least touches on a football pitch in a starting appearance. But then, we have a lot of potential flaws in the squad, some of which balance each other out and some of which don't. And in this sort of interest of balancing out of things, I've just had a thought, just before I let you go. Granit Xhaka, what do you reckon? I mean, what you think of him as a player and how you think he'll fit into the team. I mean, I've got my own thoughts and I've written about it a bit, but I just wanted to know what you guys thought.
I haven't seen him play. I won't even pretend.
Fair enough.
I read the article Lewis wrote yesterday on Daily Cannon, and that's all I know about how Xhaka plays. I mean, I read that, the usual, that he gets a lot of cards, but he's good. And what Lewis said, that he's a good combination of Santi Cazorla passing and dribbling and Coquelin's tackling, without actually having exactly as good skills at that stuff as them, but he combines the two in one. So I guess we'll see. I mean, there were reports that Arsenal scouts watched every match of his, right, or 30 matches or something like that. So I guess they know.
Yes, they like
And
to be
they did offer a lot of money, so I don't think Wenger would do that unless he thinks he's good match for our team.
What about you, Sylvain?
Yeah, I don't really know much about him, to be honest. So we're gonna lose a few midfielders, so we need numbers. And yeah, if he fits in that role very well, that should be a good signing. Huh? He'll have to compete with the other midfielders, but paying a lot of money for a player means he's probably at least gonna start a few games.
I am seriously excited. And here's the reason I'm seriously excited. It relates to Theo Walcott.
You'll like my column then.
Oh, good. Well, it struck me watching a compilation of Granit Xhaka's highlights from the last year or two that basically the only thing the bloke does is ping long balls over the top. And we all know it's a long-standing hang-up of mine that we don't do enough of that. So my abiding hope is that over the summer, when certainly Theo Walcott and hopefully Granit Xhaka, when Switzerland get knocked out of the Euros not too slowly, end up at the Arsenal training ground practicing those balls on over the top and those crunching finishes beyond the keeper. I just think I've banged on for ages about how we've seriously missed Santi Cazorla because he's the only player we have who looks for that ball over the top. And I suppose Jack Wilshere to a lesser extent. So it's really, really exciting to me to have a player who will try and play those earlier passes, those longer distance passes with accuracy and with dynamism. I saw someone likening Xhaka to Arteta because of that long passing. But statistically, Arteta, yes, did lots of long passing. But I think it was much more spreading the play rather than more direct.
Yeah.
And as I say, the highlights reel of Xhaka is all direct, in behind kind of passes. And it will be really nice to see if we can add that as an alternative to our game. Yes, we can play through a team, but we can also play round and over them if we want to. It will make us much harder to play against.
Also, I'm also excited because watching various different compilations and blah, 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 and having seen him play a couple of bits before, he reminds me a bit of a less smooth, a less silky, slightly less polished Manu Petit, which is obviously high praise. I don't think he's quite as good defensively and quite as developed as Petit was by the time we got hold of him. But I think, in terms of stature, in terms of the way they move, their kind of general approach, deeper lying central midfielders who can break forward but like to play lofted passes with the left foot a lot. That stylistically, I think they have a lot in common. And Petit was about an inch taller than Xhaka, and they're similar body shape, similar pace, i.e. not much pace, but not too slow. Which fans of over their mid-20s will find that quite an exciting comparison, I suspect.
Yeah.
Couldn't possibly comment since I'm not over my mid-20s.
Hence my clarification, my dear. Hence my clarification.
Good. Glad we're on the same page, as always.
Can I just say one thing?
Of course.
Xhaka.
Xhaka.
Yeah, like in chair. Yeah.
Oh, right. So it's
not not ch.
Okay. Granit Xhaka. Fair enough.
It's their pronunciation of Albanian, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So does that mean we've been lied to by the
That's
Swiss?
my pet peeve.
Never trust the Swiss.
Xhaka or Xhaka?
Something in between the ch and sh. I don't know how to explain it. Shaka, something like. It's so tricky, but it's ch is better than j.
We shall await a range of bad British commentators mullering it in lots of different fashions and all feel slightly better about our own pronunciation because theirs will be worse.
That's true. I get so annoyed when they don't know how to pronounce it. Shaqiri. Shaqiri or something.
Shaqiri.
Shaqiri.
That's what we say in French, Shaqiri.
That's my pet peeve.
No, but it's the same for the French name, huh?
Don't say we never teach you anything on this podcast. There we go.
Speaking of Emmanuel Petit, I got a funny story, actually.
Okay.
When he moved back in 98, actually he was doing an internship with a logistic company, and we did his removal. So actually, I moved most of his house stuff, actually. I went to his place, and he had a very nice house, actually.
I bet he did.
His girlfriend at the time was watching the French TV when we went in to move all the stuff. That was quite funny.
I actually saw a couple of things about Petit recently, and was reminded of a story which we always loved, which was that he was actually having negotiations about a transfer at the Tottenham training ground, but he decided he didn't quite trust them, and he didn't want to sign for them. And his agent found out that they had a chance to speak to Arsenal, so he got Tottenham to pay for his cab fare to David Dean's house. So apparently he still owes Tottenham Hotspur 20 quid. And then that day he signed for us. Also, randomly, he was once in an episode of The Bill.
Was he?
On TV, yeah. When France, just after France won the World Cup, I think, he turned up with flowers and a football for someone who got injured. Yeah, I've seen the clip. He's very Gallic, but you'd expect that.
Yeah.
All right then. I mean, we've talked about the season a bit, but of course, while things all go quiet in the Premier League, and before we have to engage with the potential tedium of the European Championships, although some of it might be good, there's the ladies' season is still active and relevant and delivering trophies as well. Yeah, I mean, just tell us where things are at with that now, Sylvain, because I know that you're obviously our main man on that one.
So, in terms of league season, it's quite bad, unfortunately. We are now trailing Man City by, I think, 11 points. Oops.
Wow. We've got a game in hand, haven't we?
Yeah, we got a game in hand, but we're never going to catch them.
Yeah.
Never know. But the girls managed to win the FA Women's Cup for the 14th time, which is a huge achievement. Mm-hmm. They managed to beat our neighbours Chelsea 1-0 with a super goal from Daniel Carter.
Yes, Paul and I last week were commenting on if only more of the men's team were capable of scoring that kind of goal.
Yeah, that was superb. It was really superb. And so the team turned up on the day, which they haven't done for most of the season. That's why I've graded them not very well for the mid-season review.
I was going to ask, because obviously we spoke at the start of the season about the turnover of players and the building of this strong squad, and then it seems that a number of those players haven't seen as much game time as you'd expect, and the team has been stuttering a bit. I mean, have you got any idea why?
I think we have, as we said earlier in the season, we got 22 players. So the coach is trying to rotate most of them. So there's no real consistency in the starting lineup every week. So it's difficult to get any rhythm, unfortunately. And some players didn't perform at all, which is another problem.
How have the new signings done? Because obviously there was a lot of excitement about the quality of the players coming in.
Oshoala, not great, to be honest. She hasn't found her place in the team. Farah Williams, very disappointing. Jodie Taylor hasn't played a game.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what's happened to Jodie? Has she been injured or...?
Yeah, she got injured, and also we had a problem with the international transfer certificate, apparently. So she wasn't eligible for a few games. And it was going to be her first game last Saturday, and the game got called off because of the waterlogged pitch. That your three big men signings, they either haven't performed well or have not even played. So it's a difficult situation. So in the league, unfortunately, it's qualifying for the Champions League might be possible because Chelsea managed to lose at home to City. Mm-hmm. So we're only, I think, 5 points behind them. So there might be a chance. But in terms of cup, that's a good win. And we are still the holders of the Conti Cup. So they're actually in the USA at the moment. They're friendly on Thursday. So Argon is flying on Wednesday to watch the game.
Oh, wow. Cool.
And then I'll be back for the Reserve League final on Saturday.
That's dedication for you, boys and girls.
We could have a treble in the under-17, the first team, and the reserve team playing their final against Sheffield on Saturday. So I'm not going to miss that's a final where we can do a treble.
And of course, the ladies in the States are going to be the first to be seen in the new kit, aren't they?
Yes, indeed. So I'll take some nice pictures with it. I like the goalkeeper's kit, actually.
The one who looks a bit like a printer sheet.
The dark. I really like the dark one. I think I'm gonna get one with and proper like an outfield number on it.
I'm just saying that it's okay. Kit looks decent, and that line down the middle is odd, but I think it will work. I'm just waiting for the away one. The leaked photos, I think they look great. I love yellow kits, so I'll be getting that one for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think I prefer this season's home kit and wish we could have that for another year, but I think I prefer the new away kit. So, what you going to do, huh?
I'll buy only the away one because the home one is like the one from this season, honestly. It's just that stripe in the middle.
And not as nice a collar.
But yeah, the away one looks really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, the home one, there's something about the new home kit that reminds me of one of the old kits from the mid-90s when Arsenal was shit.
The one.
The one from about 95 when George Graham got sacked. It reminds me of that one a bit, but anyway, maybe that's my twisted mind playing tricks on me. All right then. Well, I think we'll knock it on the head there. We'll wrap it up. I mean, obviously, if the Xhaka signing gets formally announced and if we have any other transfer business, then we'll obviously meet again to talk about that. And we'll probably do a bit more of a slightly more in-depth player review podcast when I can get a few more people in the same room at the same time. Yeah, it might be tricky, but hey, I'm willing to give it a go. So until then, thank you very much for your time. Thank you anyone listening for your time. And keep watching this space because there's still going to be plenty of content over the summer, even if there is no actual league football. And we might even talk about like internationals if anything interesting happens, but don't bet on that.
I think a French team will win the Euros.
Croatia.
Without Benzema.
People who blackmail their teammates,
Not so good. Yeah, it's true.
Not welcome.
Well, the thing is, can anyone stop the Germans? This is the question. The German team who doesn't seem to need to actually know who their centre forward is.
England stopped the Germans. I mean, how can you forget that? In
a friendly, yes. Because Germany's record in friendlies is so great down the years.
For sure, I think Giroud will be the best scorer on the Euros.
Golden boot for Giroud. You heard it here first.
Yeah.
I might depend on it just for good fun.
Well, for those of you who do actually give a monkeys about international football, we do also have the Arsenal-themed European Championships wall chart, as put together by a certain somebody who may be on this podcast as we speak. And Anita's very, very good at what she does. So if you like following the international tournaments, have a look on the Daily Cannon site and download the wall chart. It looks quite sexy, actually.
It is really good.
Thank you. Glad you like it.
And seeing as we've managed to find some levity after the misery of trying to work out who the worst players of the season were, that sounds like a good time to leave it. So yeah, thanks again for joining us.
Cheers, mate.
Anytime.
Thanks again for listening, and we'll be talking to you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.